Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican. I'm running for the mayor of Abbotsford to open up its books on the insider trading, the threats on families' lives, but our biggest thing is to bring the RCMP in, and we're going to go after these financial books. We only got a few days left, BC Conservatives. Dallas Brody supporters, 1BC, get out and vote for a true Conservative and put Yuri Fulner in so we can get our premiers to do our jobs. So you only have a few days to get out there. Make sure you get out, create a blue wave, get behind Yuri Fulner, BC Conservatives, and vote him in. We gotta make sure that Caroline Elliott never sees this job as a premier. She'll split the BC Conservatives out of the BC Conservatives into 1BC. Peter Millibard will create the same, and Ian Black will do the same. They're all three Liberals, and you'll have Kevin Falcon back in the party, you'll have Gordon Campbell back in the party, and you'll have all this back there, and we don't want that. Cutting deals and doing that. We want a true Conservative to come in and not hire former cabinet ministers like we see Todd Stone working for David Eby and with Peter Millibard. Today you asked me to clarify something here, and I want to bring you and clarify it today because it was so many phone calls and so many people saying we can't grasp it. Well, usually when you're in front of a judge, you got to be a lawyer. And when you're in front of construction, you need a construction lawyer. And when you're in front of Revenue Canada, you need a tax lawyer. And when you're in front of immigrations, you need an immigration lawyer. And when you're doing real estate deals, you need a real estate lawyer, and so on and so on. But the mayor has a city lawyer in the city of Abbotsford. So I want to start this podcast today, and I'll take it very slow, and I'll hook you in one by one, because a lot of seniors that need to get out and vote for Yuri that were blocked because digital ID want to see this so they could get behind Yuri and Dallas Brody. This is Andy Sadoo's property on Tracy Road. Andy Sadoo, let me explain his life to you. He's a chancellor of UFV. He also owns the South Asian newspaper, the Capritra newspaper, with his wife, and he controls what needs to be put in that newspaper for the South Asians to get behind who needs to be elected and who not. He single-handedly does it. Andy Sadoo has kids. One of his kids is Dave Sadoo. Dave Sadoo. And during the elections that were all ran, Dave Sadoo stored his signs here and everything. Dave Sadoo, it would be only fitting that when his dad passes away, he inherits his dad land with his other family, unless his dad comes out and publicly says, I'm going to donate all my land that was lifted to UFV. And he was the chancellor. Dave Sadoo ran as city council with Abbotsford First. With Abbotsford First, which is a team. They're partners. They're partners. There's nothing else but partnership. When one does something, the other one's responsible. And they ran to prop up Henry Brown on decisions. Dave Sadoo knew when Abbotsford residents were threatened and their houses went down the mountain, it was negligence by Henry, Ross, and them, and Darren Brown in front of him. Instead of respecting his elective duty as city council and coming out, he didn't. Abbotsford South Asians went to him to get their houses put in the newspaper, and he also didn't do that. When I saw that they were awarding Henry Brown decisions and Henry's friends and nobody was standing up, I ran for mayor. And thanks to the Mission RCMP, Henry Brown did not want anything in the public that what Ed Fast was doing, the MP of the Conservatives, his friend, and Mike de Jong, the sitting MLA, Attorney General, and smartest lawyer, could get himself out of a mess. Let's see you get out of this mess. The Mission RCMP stood up because of the threats on my life, Abbotsford residents' lives, because our homes, and because the mayor, who sat on the board, stood to bring a development next to his. His son was in front of him, bringing it, and it was collaborating, and he made his son the proving officer. The Abbotsford police were threatening for Henry Brown. And when the RCMP heard Keelan Olenoff say, drop the fucking videos, end the lawsuit, with the Abbotsford homeowners, or I will personally bury you. It was enough to turn the Mission RCMP on to the political leaders at the top are doing this for lifts. Under their their wisdom, their guidance, they asked me to throw my name into the city to run and not make too big of a fuss to see how bad Henry wanted the city. Dave Sidhu and Andy Sidhu, and Dave was rerunning Abbotsford First and promoting Mayor Ross Siemens. So I decided rather than go for council, I went for the biggest goal, the biggest seat of all, and said I'll go for mayor. Scaring them all because they needed a mayor that they could control to keep Henry's vision and what Henry set up for the official community plan to enrich and aid him and his friends. And it was jeopardized, and Henry knew he couldn't buy me. At that mayor term, which I have a podcast all out, you saw the threats, Dave Sidhu and Andy Sidhu decided to use their newspaper to halt me from the South Asian seeing and not give me any advertising. Dave Sidhu and Andy Sidhu at UFV, where I was supposed to debate, Andy said that Dave Sidhu came into the UFV building and threw all my stuff in the garbage, and it was my bloody shithole son that did that for Mr. Pelican to help Ross Siemens, which he was running. Ross wins, Dave wins. So now let's fast track. In return for doing that, the RCMP knew there had to be a reward. And you can't just take a city check and cut Andy Sidhu for blocking and using his newspaper a $2 million check because it'll red flash, and he knew I was looking for it. So they went through the back doors to lift this piece of property. Now let me explain. This is raspberries. Raspberries were here, and it goes, the raspberry market's quite big, and you just don't plow it under. In order to lift this from agriculture to commercial, you have to fast track it. You have to put it on fast track. But you would need to give Vitalis the Vanderpoels a guaranteed that they're buying a raspberry farm or a blueberry farm, which they never buy, that you can speed this and fast track it. That guarantee would have came out of Dave Sidhu's mouth and Ross's mouth. We control the majority of council, which were our partners, and the mayor, Ross Siemens, to fast track this over everybody else. Then to give the guarantee through the ag, which is now Pop-Up Ham, or Ham Pop-Up she name is, and she's on board with this stuff, that Pam went in when she was the Minister of Ag and could lobby that Vitalis, Vanderpoels, will get the $25 million and not be out any money for the constructions of their buildings because of this. Significantly giving them a lift to pay them back for what they did, and giving the Vanderpoels a cleared zoning permit and fast tracking it through the city. And when it came to council, the council then would outvote Les Barkman, which was the independent, because Dave Sidhu, Ross Siemens, Kelly Shahal, Mark Warkentine, the lawyer that sits on the city council that bought Ed's old practice into the real estate lawyers. Remember I told you, and I'm going to see, and he would move this. When this happened, this also took Andy Sidhu off this piece of property. He moved to McCallum and Huntington on 2 acres, and they fast-tracked it. They fast-tracked his new $3 million home over everybody else's permit and South Asian permits to get it up. It didn't go for rezoning he was building and nothing. They fast-tracked it and sped it, where people were waiting 3 to 4 years for permits. It was friends of friends. And this is what they were doing. And they brought this in, and they did this. They used the Vanderpoels, because the Vanderpoels being Vitalis, nobody would challenge them. No one would go after them because they got lawyers. And they got friends in the political ring, and they would cover it. Now, what took place, and all the farmers got land that want to zone and put cold storage, like I showed you Joe. They blocked it, and they didn't fast track Joe, did they? And Amric Moran should have been there begging in the ledge. Instead, he was trying to get leverage and exposure to run for city council, because here comes another one of the establishments. Not going to happen, Amric. Too many people are now connected to me that I know every angle that what Henry needs for the next 5 to 10 years to keep developments and big developers from going after him, because you shithole, you promised. And then Amric Moran couldn't do that. So unless you put your name in to run for city council as a farmer, and you can do this what Dave Sidhu did with his dad, Andy Sidhu. So let me explain to Ted Dyckman, one of the bigger farmers. You would now put your hat in to run for city council, and then you could fast track zoning permits and big commercial zoning on your dad, Ted Dyckman's property. And this is what you could do. And all you would have to do then is run mayors with you and have a majority that would agree with you every single time, which is a partnership, a company, a partnership. Remember, there was a criminal file many years ago in Maple Ridge. 22 men molested a woman. The judge didn't say the one that was doing it. All of them were held accountable because they were all in that room. These councils didn't do it independently. They were involved. And as much as I say Les Barkman was independent, Les Barkman knew that Dave Sidhu's land was being given a lift. He knew his job as a role of a council. He knew you don't take these acres of raspberries and shove it under. He knew that Vanderpool does not go out and buy blueberries and raspberries to rezone it unless they got a guarantee. And this is what they were doing. This scared the mob of Abbotsford and establishment. This is why Colin Watts allowed his officers to threaten me. But the question now to everybody is asking me, everybody, how far does it go up the ladder? Well, you know that when the scandals that used to go on, Trudeau, and go down on the states, on senators and governors, their slush funds back. Was David Eby pumping this money in because he knows the NDP is in terminal and he's looking for something out the back through these big developers. These big developers can do it. But it's unfair to people like Joe. It's unfair to our farmers that live in the swamp, that need to extend, that need to do this. It's totally unfair when we got a premier standing up saying, we're taking the U.S. alcohol off the shelves to teach Donald Trump a lesson. Big old premier lawyer David Eby. And then does not allow Joe on Short Road to extend his cold storage to freeze his berries here so they can be sold here and bought BC. They got to be shipped to California. And Amric Moran went into the ledge with Corky Neufeld and looked like an ass. But who should be here is Brad Viss, because he wants to run Abbotsford. He doesn't want to be an MP for Mission and the other side. He wants to be the mayor for Abbotsford. And Brad owes Henry, Ed, and Mike, who made him. They made him, and this is why Brad cannot stand to get away from what Ed tells him. Endorse Ian Black, he's got to crawl. Go take pictures with Amric Moran, he's got to call, and he's got to crawl. They made him. He was a secretary. This is why I told you that it'd be best for Pierre Poilievre to tell Brad Viss, the federal Conservatives are not going to green light you in the next election because you cannot stop that. And you're causing the Conservatives more and more harm. And Pierre Poilievre, at the end of the day, will not beat Carney. But does not this tell you why? Why Mr. Pelican, Abbotsford my life was threatened, why I was put in a hit and run in a target, why the top of the Abbotsford Police Chief, Mike Sir, could cover it up for Henry, why Mike de Jong told me to cut a deal, why Ed Fast went and covered it up. They were enriching themselves. They were stealing from the Abbotsford taxpayers, and they were all in it together. Without the insight and the knowledge and the wisdom and the help of the Mission RCMP, knowing when I went to him about Darren Brown, this would never be possible. So do you not think that it's pretty soon time for BC start to say, with all the stuff lifting, now this ain't the only one. If you look at Brian Cadet, this guy that bought this weasel, they call him in Abbotsford, they call him a weasel. He's the same guy that put the Mackenzie people on the Mackenzie Bog for that illegal operation in that thing. So it's befitting if the farmers want to rezone, they find this Brian Cadet that's got ties into the establishment, to the Peter Sparanese and the city lawyer, and they can rezone your stuff, but you gotta stop being a farmer and stop producing blueberries and stop doing that. And you need to put your name all forward to run for city council, because look at the lift you get. And now you go to Huntington and McCallum and you look at Andy Sidhu's brand new house. This is what the RCMP said when Mr. Pelican, when he did what he did, and he called you into the Capriccio newspaper and called his son a piece of shit. Dave Sidhu did that to Lode Ross. Andy Sidhu was involved with it. Andy Sidhu stood to 10. So what they figured they were going to do was hide Dave Sidhu's reward that he was doing. And they're going to lift. This is what I told you, which kickbacks on a job site. You don't got to take cash or a check from Vanderpool's to show that you were paid off to do it. Vanderpool's can remodel your kitchens. Vanderpool's probably could send their construction team to build Andy Sidhu's house. They could buy lots of stuff and put it in. This is what forensic audits will do. It will show you where these construction crews were. Send my guys all day long for the next 3 months down to build Andy Sidhu's house. Now send them to Ross's house and give Ross's wife a new thing. Now send them to the Abbotsford Police Chief Mike Sir's house and get his house done. These is what forensic audits open. And when you see something on this magnitude and this sick, this is sick. This is beyond sick. This is sick. This is absolutely sick that council and this mayor were doing this, but they covered Henry's attempted murder. Then they covered the democracy in elections. Then they used the Abbotsford police to threaten. And then they were going to try to take pictures, put them all out on Facebook, use Vicky Hopes, and blow it all up. This is where Vicky Hopes should be. This is where Vicky Hopes should be. And this is where the news should be. This is where my ag minister should be. Ham Pammer from David Eby, putting a stop to it. But also, she is the one responsible now lifting the piece of property at UFB for moving the ag center I showed you the other day for $500 million. So it'd be fitting that I would come in as your mayor and tell all my farmers, stop doing what you're doing. You're wasting time and everything. They want your land for zoning. It's there, you see clearly. You're in the way of trillions of dollars by this mob. Put your name in, run for city council, run for mayor. And you, Ted Dyckman, can do with Otto Dyckman what Dave Sidhu did here. That began threats on people's lives. It began the Abbotsford police around my house, the task force. I podcasted week after week showing you the belligerent attacks, pulling me from my truck, saying I'm drinking. The one up at Ledgeview, you knew who was running the back. Mike Sir gets called in, and he's going to be charged for covering an attempted murder. Mike Sir is going to squeal what Henry Brown did. Keelan Olenoff's going to squeal. Ross Siemens is going to squeal. Dave Sidhu will squeal like a little pig, and he'll never stop squealing. Kelly Shahal's going to squeal. But their elective duty was to look after Abbotsford, be a servant of the people, and they weren't. They saw a chair. But don't make no mistake. Peter Sparanese, the city manager, knew better than this one. The city lawyer knew better than this one. And they knew better because Vanderpool's ain't in the business of going out and buying raspberries. They ain't in the business. They had to be given 200% guaranteed. And they had to be given that clearly. Now, what are we going to have? We're going to have the ag minister come in here. We're going to have David Eby to get the light off of him. And you'll say, we're going to send Bob Rich in there. We're Bob Rich's good big team. Remember Bob Rich that jumped all my community vehicles? Remember Bob Rich that Henry shoved in the computer? Remember Bob? And we're going to send Mike Sir, and we're going to hold investigations because it's going to come in your office. I told you, it needs to be pulled off the table, and all these land deals need to be opened up of why they're not going to tender and that. Under my mayorship, under my leadership, under the team that's behind me, and if Yuri Fulner becomes the leader of the BC Conservative, Vanderpool's is going to lose their ass. Vitalis is going to land up in court for insider trading, and they were promised this. This is why Vitalis could do this. And this is what the Vanderpool's were doing to my farmers when my farmers live in the swamp. I want my farmers to see that. Now, if that doesn't bring you the clarification of what took place and why I want the RCMP, you can go look at Colin Watts, how bloody scared he was. Only thing Watts now, if you look at him, Colin Watts and his top detectives, top criminal investigators, the criminal investigators at the Abbotsford Police are top, picking up prostitutes. He doesn't even iron his shirt. His shirt looks a bloody mess. His team looks a mess. And every time Mr. Pelican hits a podcast, he's out to threaten me. But he shit his pants. And he shit his drawers pretty bad when he saw Dallas Brody beside me, when he saw Yuri Fulner beside me, when he saw all the politicians beside me. And he's looking for a way to bail out. And I made it clear. Your time is up, Colin Watts. No oversight. no supervision. You can't get the guys under control. You need your ass kicked out of here, and we need the best. And that is why I'm running for mayor. We need the best so Abbotsford never goes and gets threatened again. And an elite mob like Henry Brown can never be put up together and be put in. There is no difference when the Abbotsford police stand there and tell you about organized crime and gangs than what Henry Brown, Ed Fast, Mike DeYoung, Ross Siemens, Dave Sidhu, Andy Sidhu, and the establishment put together. But because it was about them and they were enriching them and they were the Abbotsford police chief's boss, they couldn't charge Henry. They couldn't go out and get statements, and they couldn't get that. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to vote blue, and we need to put a Conservative in that will open up why Abbotsford's got all this money, why the ag minister's doing this, and why Vitalis did this. And Vanderpoels does not buy ag land and do this. I'm live. Abbotsford, British Columbia, Abbotsford, BC, and I encourage you why I do these videos. So politicians, as soon as I do a video, they come out with their team and their campaign and they drive by to look that it's not hearsay, and they look at Andy Sidhu's property. Then they approach like they did when I did a video on Barreltown, and they look and they go, yeah, the facts. Abbotsford City staff called me out on this because of jealousy. Abbotsford City staff called me out because the farmers are in swamp. Abbotsford City staff called me out when they saw Amric Moran go into the ledge and they saw Joe being blocked. Abbotsford City staff called me out when they saw Dave Sidhu preferential treatment with his council. It would be only fitting that I step down now and not run for mayor, and I ask the federal government to put me in charge of being the prosecutor so I can prosecute them. But the question is, what did they deserve? 100 years? 500 years? Life in prison? What did they deserve? That's for my general community and my general public to come up with what they deserve for taking advantage, being a servant of the people. I'm live. Abbotsford, British Columbia, Ross Siemens.